The massive space station Meridian Prime hung in the void between star systems like a giant metal flower. Its rotating sections gleamed under the light of distant suns. This neutral meeting place had seen many diplomatic discussions over the centuries, but none as important as today's gathering. Admiral Sarah Chen walked down the long corridor toward the main conference hall. Her footsteps echoed against the metal walls. Behind her, 2 human guards followed silently. Their uniforms were simple and clean, without the fancy decorations that other species loved to wear. Sarah preferred it that way. Humans did not need to show off. The conference hall doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 12 different alien species sat around a huge circular table. Each delegation looked very different from the others. The Cathara had blue skin and 4 arms. The Zalani were tall and thin with silver eyes that never blinked. The Morgothi looked like giant insects with shimmering wings. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing in common today. They all stared at Sarah with the same expression of cold judgment. At the head of the table sat High Chancellor Vextar of the Galactic Coalition. His species, the hegemony, were known for their arrogance. They believed they were the most advanced race in the galaxy. Vextar's large head turned toward Sarah as she entered. His 6 eyes focused on her like a predator watching prey. "Admiral Chen," Vextar said in his deep voice, "you arrive at last. Please, take your seat." Sarah walked to the single empty chair across from the alien delegates. The setup was clearly meant to make her feel isolated and outnumbered. It did not work. She had faced worse odds before. "Let us begin," Vextar continued. "The Galactic Coalition has called this meeting to deliver an important message to humanity. For 50 years, your species has been a problem. You refuse to follow our guidance, you question our authority. You continue to develop weapons when we have asked for peace." Sarah listened without speaking. She had heard similar speeches many times before. The aliens always talked about peace, but they meant submission. "Your species is young and violent," added Ambassador Krelon of the Cathra. Her 4 arms moved as she spoke, making gestures that showed her frustration. "You solve problems with force instead of wisdom. This cannot continue." "We have tried to help you," said the Zalani representative, his silver eyes reflecting the room's lights. "We offered to share our technology. We invited you to join our peaceful alliance. But you always choose the path of conflict." Sarah finally spoke. "We choose the path of freedom." The room fell silent. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Vextar's 6 eyes narrowed. "Freedom." He repeated the word like it tasted bad. "This is exactly the problem. You think freedom means you can do whatever you want. But true civilization requires order. It requires following rules made by those who are wiser and more experienced." "Your rules," Sarah said calmly. "Our rules have kept the galaxy peaceful for over 1,000 years, Vextar replied. "Before the Coalition, there were constant wars between species. Billions died in meaningless conflicts. We ended that chaos. We brought order and prosperity to hundreds of worlds." Sarah looked around the table at each delegation. "And what did those worlds give up for your peace?" "They gave up their primitive ways," said the Morgothi delegate, his insect-like voice clicking and buzzing. "They learned to be civilized." "They gave up their independence," Sarah corrected. "They became your servants." Vextar slammed his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the hall. "Enough. We did not come here to debate philosophy with a species that barely learned to fly between stars a century ago. We came to deliver an ultimatum." The High Chancellor stood up. His tall form cast a shadow across the table. Behind him, a holographic display activated, showing images of the Earth's solar system. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded the human homeworld like a metal storm cloud. "Behold the combined fleet of the Galactic Coalition," Vextar announced. 12 species, over 2,000 warships, the most advanced technology in the galaxy, all focused on one small blue world. Sarah studied the display without showing emotion. The alien fleet was indeed massive. Each ship was larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built. But she had expected this. "You have a choice, Admiral Chen." Vexitar continued. Humanity can submit to coalition authority, disarm your military, accept our governance, allow us to guide your species toward proper civilization. If you do this, your people will be allowed to live as productive members of our great alliance. And if we refuse? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Then you will be eliminated, Vexitar said without hesitation. Your species will join the long list of races that chose extinction over enlightenment. Your planets will be cleansed and given to more deserving civilizations. The other alien delegates nodded in agreement. They had clearly discussed this plan many times before. To them, it was a simple business decision. Submit or die. Sarah stood up slowly. She looked at each alien representative in turn, memorizing their faces. These beings thought they understood humanity. They thought humans were just another primitive species that could be bullied into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they were. How long do we have to decide? She asked. 72 standard hours, Vexitar replied. That should be enough time for your leaders to see reason. When the deadline passes, our fleet will begin the cleansing of your system. We suggest you spend this time preparing your surrender, not planning some foolish resistance. Sarah nodded once. I will deliver your message to Earth Command. She turned to leave, but Vexitar called after her. Admiral, I hope you understand that this is not personal. The Coalition takes no pleasure in violence, but some lessons can only be taught through force. Sarah stopped at the door. She turned back to face the assembled aliens one final time. A small smile appeared on her face, but it was not a happy expression. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others did not. Hi, Chancellor, she said. I think you're confused about who is going to be teaching whom. The conference hall doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. Sarah walked back down the long corridor, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Her guards fell into step beside her, but they did not speak. They could see the change in their admiral's bearing. The diplomatic phase was over. When Sarah reached her ship, she went directly to the communication center. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced precision. Within minutes, she had established a secure connection to Earth Command. The faces of humanity's military leaders appeared on the screen before her. Report, Admiral, said General Martinez, the head of Earth's defense forces. They want our complete surrender in 72 hours, Sarah said. Full disarmament, total submission to coalition authority. The alternative is extinction. The faces on the screen showed no surprise. They had all expected this moment would come eventually. And our response? Asked Admiral Petrov of the Space Fleet. Sarah's smile returned, cold and sharp as a blade. Send a message on all coalition frequencies. Make sure every ship in their fleet receives it. She paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. This message would be remembered long after the battle was over. Tell them, you chose conflict. Watch us teach you how it's done. The transmission ended. Sarah looked out through the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere in that darkness, the largest invasion force in galactic history was preparing to destroy her homeworld. They thought they knew what they were facing. They had no idea what humanity was about to show them. The lesson was about to begin. The coalition fleet moved through space like a metal tide. Over 2,000 ships advanced toward Earth's solar system in perfect formation. Each vessel represented the peak of alien military technology. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop the strongest human attacks. At least that's what their commanders believed. High Chancellor Vexitar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship was 5 kilometers long and bristled with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Through the main view screen, he could see the human home system growing larger ahead. Report, he commanded his tactical officer. We are detecting minimal resistance. High Chancellor, the Kythera officer replied, her 4 hands dancing across her control panel. Long-range sensors show approximately 200 human vessels in defensive positions around their primary world. Vexitar's 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. 200 ships against our 2,000. The humans are even more foolish than I thought. Sir, interrupted another officer, we are also detecting numerous civilian vessels fleeing the system. Cargo ships, passenger liners, mining transports. It appears the human population is attempting to evacuate. Let them run, Vextar said with contempt. We will hunt down the survivors later. Focus on the military targets. The coalition fleet continued its approach, maintaining their overwhelming formation. Each species group stayed in their designated sector. The Cathera ships formed the left wing with their distinctive blue hulls. The Zelani took the right with their silver needle-like vessels. The Morgothi buzzed through space in their organic-looking craft, all perfectly organized just as coalition doctrine demanded. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the enemy approach from the command center of Earth's primary orbital defense station. Around her, dozens of human officers worked quietly at their stations. The main display showed the massive alien fleet getting closer each minute. They're maintaining standard attack formation, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. No deviation from their textbook approach. Of course they are, Sarah replied calmly. They've won every battle the same way for 1,000 years. Why would they change now? Admiral, called out Lieutenant Kim from communications. We're receiving surrender demands from 17 different coalition ships. They want us to power down our weapons and prepare for boarding. Sarah almost smiled. Ignore them. Let them think we're too scared to respond. The truth was very different from what the coalition sensors were reporting. Those 200 human military vessels defending Earth were actually automated decoys. The real human fleet was scattered throughout the system, hidden and waiting. The fleeing civilian ships were not running away in panic. They were moving to predetermined positions for the trap Sarah had been planning for months. Admiral, Commander Torres said quietly, the packages are in position. Sarah nodded. The packages were humanity's secret weapons, disguised as simple cargo containers and mining equipment. For years, human diplomats and traders had been visiting coalition worlds, studying their technology, learning their weaknesses. Every handshake, every trade agreement, every cultural exchange had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Enemy fleet is entering the asteroid belt, reported the sensor officer. They're maintaining formation, ignoring the mining platforms. Perfect, Sarah thought. The coalition commanders saw exactly what they expected to see. Abandoned human mining operations scattered throughout the belt. Industrial equipment left behind by fleeing workers. Nothing worth their attention. They had no idea that each abandoned platform contained enough firepower to cripple a coalition battleship. Hi, Chancellor. The Morgothi tactical officer buzzed from his station. The human defensive line is holding position near their home world. They appear to be waiting for us to come to them. Vextar studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans were following predictable defensive doctrine. Protect the homeworld at all costs. Make the enemy come to you. It was the strategy of a weak species with limited options. Maintain course, he ordered. All ships will engage the human fleet simultaneously. We will demonstrate the price of defying coalition authority. The massive alien fleet swept through the asteroid belt without slowing down. Behind them, seemingly empty mining platforms and cargo containers began to power up. Weapon systems came online. Targeting computers locked onto coalition ships. But the enemy sensors detected nothing. The humans had learned to hide their technology behind false readings and electronic ghosts. Sarah watched the tactical display as the coalition fleet passed the point of no return. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Order Prometheus. Across the solar system, the trap activated. The cargo ships fleeing toward the outer planets suddenly reversed course. Their civilian hulls fell away like shed skin, revealing sleek warships underneath. These vessels had been built in secret shipyards hidden in the gas giants' moons. Each one carried weapons reverse-engineered from coalition technology, but improved with human innovation. The asteroid belt came alive with weapons fire. Mining platforms revealed themselves as heavily armed battle stations. What the aliens thought was simple industrial equipment turned out to be the largest minefield in galactic history. Thousands of hidden missiles streaked toward the coalition fleet, but the real surprise was still coming. Second wave. Execute, Sarah commanded. From the shadows of Earth's moon, a new group of ships appeared. These were not disguised vessels or hidden platforms. These were pure human warships built using completely original technology. Ships that could accelerate faster than coalition sensors could track. Vessels that could change direction in ways that violated everything the aliens knew about space combat. The coalition fleet found itself surrounded. High Chancellor. Vexter stared at the tactical display in shock. His perfect formation was falling apart as explosions blossomed throughout his fleet. Ships that had seemed invisible moments ago were now pouring fire into his vessels from every direction. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our sensors detected no significant human presence." "Sir," his tactical officer replied with panic in her voice, "the humans appear to have been using sensor ghosts and false signatures. Everything we detected was fake. The real human fleet was hidden. A nearby coalition cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. The humans were not fighting like any species the coalition had ever encountered. Instead of meeting force with force, they were using speed, deception, and coordination. All ships break formation," Vextar commanded. "Engage targets of opportunity." But breaking formation only made things worse. The coalition fleet had trained to fight as a unified force. Individual ships were not prepared for the chaos of scattered combat. The humans, however, thrived in chaos. Each human vessel fought independently, while somehow coordinating perfectly with the others. "Admiral," Commander Torres reported with barely contained excitement, "enemy casualties at 30% and rising. Our losses are minimal." Sarah nodded, but she showed no emotion. This was only the beginning. The coalition had superior numbers and firepower. They would adapt to the initial surprise. The real test was yet to come. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them what we learned from studying their technology." Human ships began using weapons and tactics that should have been impossible. Shields that bent attacks instead of stopping them. Missiles that could think and adapt in flight. Energy weapons that grew stronger the more they were used. The coalition had shared their technology with humanity as part of diplomatic exchanges. They thought they were being generous, showing primitive humans the wonders of advanced science. They never imagined that humans would take their technology apart, understand it completely, and then make it better. "Impossible," Vextar whispered as he watched a human destroyer disable 3 coalition battleships using weapons that looked like improved versions of his own. They could not have advanced so far so quickly. "High Chancellor," his communication officer called out. "We are receiving a transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through," Vextar commanded. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the human command center was calm and organized, a sharp contrast to the panic on coalition bridges. "High Chancellor Vextar," Sarah said with polite formality, "I wanted to thank you for the education. Your diplomats were very helpful in teaching us about coalition military technology. We made some improvements, of course. Humans are good at that." Vextar's 6 eyes blazed with fury. "You deceived us. You violated the trust of diplomatic exchange." "No," Sarah replied calmly. "We learned from you. Isn't that what you wanted? For humanity to be educated by more advanced civilizations?" The transmission ended. Around Vextar, his bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate their scattered fleet. But it was too late. The humans had turned the coalition's own strength against them. The lesson had begun, and the coalition was failing their first test. In the depths of space, human ships moved like dancers through the chaos of battle, teaching their enemies that sometimes the student becomes the teacher. The battle for Earth's solar system had been raging for 6 hours. The coalition fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, was now scattered and confused. Ships that had never known defeat were burning in the void. Commanders who had conquered entire star systems were sending desperate calls for reinforcement. High Chancellor Vextar stood in the ruins of his flagship's bridge. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The air tasted of smoke and fear. Through the cracked main view screen, he could see human ships moving between the coalition vessels like sharks hunting in bloody water. "Report," he commanded, though his voice no longer carried its earlier confidence. "Fleet casualties at 60%, High Chancellor," his tactical officer replied with trembling hands. "We have lost contact with 12 sector commanders. The humans are jamming our communications." "How many human ships have we destroyed?" The officer hesitated before answering. 17 confirmed kills, sir. 17. Out of what they now knew was a human fleet of over 800 ships. The numbers were impossible to accept, but the evidence was all around them. The coalition, the greatest military force in galactic history, was being crushed by a species they had considered primitive. "Sir," called out the communication officer, "we are receiving another transmission from the human admiral." Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the damaged screen. Behind her, the human command center remained calm and efficient. Not a single sign of strain showed on her face or the faces of her officers. "Hi, Chancellor," Sarah began. "I hope you are paying attention to what is happening around you. This is your first lesson in human warfare. We call it adaptive tactics. While you maintain rigid formations and follow predetermined strategies, we adjust to each moment of battle." As if to demonstrate her point, 3 human destroyers suddenly changed course in perfect coordination. They had been attacking a Cathara battleship from the front. Now they split apart and struck from 3 different angles. The alien vessel, designed to face enemies head-on, could not defend against simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. "Your species thinks in straight lines," Sarah continued. "Attack, defend, retreat, advance. Binary choices. We think in curves and spirals. Every action creates new possibilities." Vextar watched as the Cathara battleship exploded. Its death lit up the darkness of space with brilliant fire. "You want to see how it's done?" Sarah asked. "Then watch closely." The transmission ended, but the lesson continued. Human Marines began boarding coalition vessels. But they were not conducting normal assault operations. Instead of fighting their way to the bridge to capture or destroy the ships, they moved through the vessels like ghosts. They captured key systems, turned the ship's weapons against their own allies, and then disappeared before the crew could respond. Commander Torres approached Admiral Chen at her command station. "Admiral, boarding parties report successful infiltration of 47 coalition vessels. We now have control of their navigation and weapon systems." Sarah nodded. "Execute the demonstration." Across the battlefield, coalition ships suddenly began firing on each other. Cathara vessels opened fire on Zalani cruisers. Morgathi fighters attacked their own carriers. The aliens watched in horror as their own weapons were turned against them by human hackers who had infiltrated their systems. "This is impossible," Vextar screamed. "Our security protocols are unbreakable." But humans had spent years studying those protocols during diplomatic exchanges. Every handshake, every trade negotiation, every cultural visit had been an opportunity to learn coalition weaknesses. While the aliens focused on their technological superiority, humans focused on understanding how that technology worked and how it could be compromised. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," Vextar ordered. "Establish new communication codes. Shut down all automated systems." The coalition fleet began to reorganize, pulling back from the chaotic battle. Their commanders implemented emergency protocols designed to prevent exactly this kind of infiltration. For a moment, it seemed like they might regain some control of the situation. Then Admiral Chen began the next phase of humanity's lesson. "Attention, Coalition Fleet," her voice broadcast on all frequencies. "You have successfully identified one of our attack methods and taken steps to counter it. This shows you are capable of learning. However, you are thinking too small. You stopped one tactic while ignoring the larger strategy." As she spoke, new contacts appeared on coalition sensors. Ships emerging from the gas giant's moons, vessels rising from hidden bases on asteroids, forces that had been waiting in the outer system for precisely this moment. The coalition had focused all their attention on stopping human boarding parties and cyber attacks. They had forgotten about the human reinforcements that were still approaching from every direction. "Lesson number 2, Sarah announced. "Never focus so hard on one threat that you ignore all the others." The new human ships did not attack immediately. Instead, they formed a perfect sphere around the coalition fleet. Every escape route was blocked. Every possible retreat was covered. The aliens found themselves trapped in a cage of human steel. "This is your opportunity to observe our coordination doctrine," Sarah explained, as if she were teaching a class. "Notice how each human ship knows exactly where every other human ship is positioned. We do not need rigid formations because we think as a unified whole." It was true. The human ships moved like a single organism. When one group engaged the enemy, others automatically moved to support them. When coalition forces tried to break through the encirclement, human vessels flowed like water to fill the gaps. "Your coalition relies on species specialization," Sarah continued her broadcast. "Cathara ships are good at frontal assault. Zalani vessels excel at long-range bombardment. Morgathi fighters are effective in swarm attacks. But what happens when the battle requires something different?" As she spoke, human ships began changing their roles in real time. Destroyers became support vessels. Cruisers transformed into fast attack craft. Heavy battleships split into smaller units. The humans adapted their entire fleet configuration to match the changing needs of the battle. The coalition could not respond effectively. Their ships were designed for specific roles. Their crews were trained for particular missions. Their command structure was built around species-based specialization. They could not adapt quickly enough to match human flexibility. "Admiral," Commander Torres reported, "the enemy is trying to establish a new command hierarchy. The Cathara are attempting to take overall control of the fleet." Sarah watched as the coalition struggled to reorganize their leadership. The different species were arguing over who should give orders. Each group thought their way of fighting was best. They were wasting precious time and resources on internal politics while human ships closed in from all sides. Lesson number 3, Sarah announced to the coalition fleet. Unity of command is more important than technological superiority. To demonstrate this principle, Sarah ordered a coordinated attack on the coalition's largest battleship, a massive hegemony vessel that served as Vextar's mobile command center. Instead of overwhelming it with firepower, human ships began a complex dance around the enemy vessel. One group attacked from above, forcing the battleship to raise its shields. Another group attacked from below, making it split its defensive fire. A third group hit it from the sides while its weapons were distracted. But none of these attacks were meant to destroy the ship immediately. They were setting up the real attack. "Watch carefully," Sarah said to the coalition commanders. "This is called a sacrificial gambit." A single human destroyer broke formation and charged directly at the battleship's main weapon. The coalition crew focused all their fire on this obvious threat, pouring enough energy to vaporize the small ship 10 times over. But the destroyer was not trying to survive the attack. It was carrying a special payload designed to overload the battleship's shields at the exact moment of impact. When the ship exploded, it created a brief gap in the enemy's defenses. In that instant, 50 human missiles slipped through the gap and struck the battleship's critical systems. The massive vessel did not explode, but its weapons went offline and its engines failed. It was alive but helpless. "You see," Sarah explained to the stunned coalition forces, "we are willing to sacrifice individual units to achieve strategic objectives. Your species fight to preserve every ship because you see them as irreplaceable. We fight to accomplish the mission." The psychological impact of watching their most powerful ship disabled by a single small destroyer was devastating to coalition morale. If their flagship could be neutralized so easily, what hope did the rest of their fleet have? "This concludes today's lesson," Admiral Chen announced. "You have learned about adaptive tactics, unified command, and strategic sacrifice. Tomorrow we will cover advanced maneuvers and psychological warfare." Class dismissed. The human fleet began to withdraw to safe distances, but they maintained their encirclement. The coalition was trapped but not destroyed. They were being kept alive to learn more lessons. High Chancellor Vextar slumped in his command chair as the reality of their situation became clear. The coalition had not just lost a battle. They were being systematically educated in the art of war by a species they had planned to exterminate. And the humans were just getting started. 3 weeks had passed since the initial battle in Earth's solar system. The news of the coalition's defeat had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 1,000 years, the mighty Galactic Coalition had been beaten by a single species. But Admiral Sarah Chen was not finished with her lessons. The human fleet had pursued the scattered coalition forces across 12 star systems. Each battle was another teaching demonstration. Each victory was another chapter in humanity's unofficial textbook on warfare. The galaxy watched in amazement as the humans did something no species had ever accomplished before. They were winning a war while simultaneously explaining exactly how they were doing it. High Chancellor Vextar sat in his makeshift command center on the fortress world of Kelmar Prime. His flagship had been destroyed in the Battle of the Rigel Nebula when human forces demonstrated something they called synchronized bombing patterns. Now he commanded what remained of the coalition fleet from a bunker buried 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface. "Status report," he demanded from his remaining officers. General Krelon of the Kithera spoke first. Her blue skin had lost its healthy glow, and her forearms trembled with exhaustion. "The humans have taken the Altair system. They broadcasted their entire attack strategy to our forces before the battle began, then executed it perfectly," despite our attempts to counter their plans. Admiral Zelthara of the Zelani continued the grim report. They have also captured the Vega colonies and the mining worlds of Sector 7. In each case, they offered our defenders multiple opportunities to surrender before beginning their assault. Surrender opportunities? Vextar's 6 eyes blazed with fury. They mock us with false mercy. No, High Chancellor, interrupted Commander Morgax of the Morgathi, his insect-like voice clicking with confusion. They genuinely seem to want to minimize casualties. After each victory, they provide medical aid to our wounded and educational materials to our prisoners. Vextar stared at the tactical display showing human fleet positions throughout Coalition space. The enemy forces were everywhere, but they were not behaving like conquerors. They were acting like teachers who had taken control of a classroom full of unruly students. "Sir," the communication officer announced, "we are receiving another transmission from Admiral Chen." "Put it through," Vextar said wearily. These daily broadcasts had become routine. Each one was more humiliating than the last. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the human command center buzzed with quiet efficiency. She looked as calm and professional as ever, as if conducting a galactic war was just another day at the office. "High Chancellor Vextar," she began with polite formality, "I hope you have been studying the reports from our recent engagements. Today's lesson will focus on something we call psychological warfare. Pay close attention, as this will be on the final exam." Vextar wanted to shut off the transmission, but he knew his officers needed to hear what was coming. The humans had demonstrated that their broadcasts always contained genuine tactical information mixed with devastating psychological attacks. "Your coalition's greatest weakness," Sarah continued, "is not your technology or your numbers. It is your inability to trust each other. You have built an alliance based on fear and submission, rather than genuine cooperation. Now, under pressure, those cracks are beginning to show." As if summoned by her words, alerts began flashing on the Coalition's communication board. Urgent messages from across their territory filled the screens. "The Althari Confederacy has withdrawn from the Coalition," General Krelon reported with shock. "They are requesting separate peace negotiations with humanity. The Nexus Republic is also pulling back their forces," added Admiral Zelthara. "They claim the Coalition leadership is incompetent." Sarah's voice continued from the speaker. "You see, High Chancellor, we have been offering individual peace treaties to each Coalition member species, not because we need their surrender, but because we want them to understand that they have choices. Your alliance demands submission. Ours offers partnership." More alerts appeared on the displays. 3 more species had formally withdrawn from the Coalition. 2 others had ceased military operations and declared neutrality. The 1,000-year alliance was collapsing not from external attack, but from internal pressure. "This is impossible," Vextar whispered. "The Coalition has endured for centuries. These species know the benefits of our protection, do they?" Sarah asked as if she had heard his words. "Or do they know the cost of your domination? We have spent weeks talking with their leaders, not as conquerors demanding surrender, but as equals offering alternatives." The tactical display updated to show the current state of Coalition territory. Over half their member worlds had either withdrawn from the alliance or declared independence. The remaining forces were scattered and demoralized. "Today's demonstration," Sarah announced, "will show the difference between ruling through fear and leading through respect." The transmission switched to show human forces approaching the Centauri defense platform, one of the Coalition's most important military installations. Instead of attacking immediately, the human fleet stopped just outside weapons range. "Attention Centauri platform," Admiral Chen's voice broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We know you have been ordered to fight to the death. We know your commanders have told you that surrender means extinction. We are here to offer you a different choice." The platform's defensive systems powered up, but the human ships did not respond with hostile actions. Instead, they began broadcasting something unprecedented in galactic warfare: complete tactical intelligence about their own forces. "Our attack fleet consists of 87 vessels," Sarah's voice explained. "We are carrying plasma torpedoes, quantum missiles, and shield disruptors. Our plan is to approach from Vector 77 Alpha and target your main power core. We expect to complete the engagement in approximately 4 hours with minimal casualties to both sides. Vextar watched in amazement as the humans revealed every detail of their attack plan, ship positions, weapon capabilities, tactical objectives, everything their enemies needed to mount an effective defense. Why are they doing this? General Krelon asked in bewilderment. They are giving away every advantage, Sarah's voice answered as if she had heard the question. We are doing this because true strength does not require deception. We are confident in our abilities. More importantly, we want you to understand that this battle is your choice, not ours. The human fleet began their attack exactly as they had described. They approached from Vector 77 Alpha. They targeted the main power core. They used plasma torpedoes and quantum missiles. Every detail matched their advance warning, but something amazing happened. The Coalition defenders, knowing exactly what was coming, fought better than they had in weeks. They coordinated their response perfectly. They managed to destroy several human ships and damage many others. For the first time since the war began, they felt like they had a chance. Then the human reinforcements arrived. Second lesson in psychological warfare, Sarah announced calmly. Sometimes revealing one plan allows you to execute a completely different one. While the Coalition forces had focused on defending against the announced attack, human stealth ships had infiltrated the platform from the opposite direction. They had not come to destroy the installation, but to take control of its communication systems. Suddenly, every screen on the platform displayed the same message. You have fought bravely and skillfully. Your tactical performance exceeded expectations. You are now prisoners of war and will be treated with the respect due to honorable soldiers. The platform's weapons powered down, its shields deactivated, not because the humans had forced them to surrender, but because the defenders finally understood what they were fighting against. You see, Sarah explained to the stunned Coalition forces, we did not lie about our attack plan. We simply executed 2 operations simultaneously. The frontal assault was real. The infiltration was also real. Both served different purposes. Vextar realized with growing horror what the humans had done. They had allowed Coalition forces to fight effectively and feel proud of their performance, then demonstrated that human victory was inevitable regardless. It was more demoralizing than any defeat. Final lesson for today, Admiral Chen announced. Wars are not won by destroying your enemies. They are won by convincing your enemies that continuing to fight serves no purpose. The transmission ended, but the psychological damage was complete. Around the command bunker, Coalition officers stared at their displays in silence. They had just watched their comrades fight their best battle of the war, only to lose anyway. High Chancellor, the communication officer, said quietly, We are receiving surrender requests from 47 Coalition installations. They are asking for the same terms offered to Centauri platform. Vextar closed his 6 eyes in defeat. The humans were not just winning the war. They were teaching the galaxy a new way to think about conflict itself, and the most terrifying part was that their lessons actually made sense. Sir, General Krelon said hesitantly, perhaps we should consider learning from their example. Vextar looked at his oldest ally with surprise. 6 months had passed since the Coalition delivered their ultimatum to Earth. Now, High Chancellor Vextar stood in the Great Assembly Hall of Nexus Prime, the former capital of the Galactic Coalition. But today was different. Today he was not here as a conqueror or ruler. He was here as a student. The massive hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Former Coalition members sat beside species that had never joined the Alliance. Independent colonies shared space with ancient civilizations. All had come to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. The voluntary transformation of the galaxy's most powerful military force. Admiral Sarah Chen walked to the center of the hall, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She wore her simple human uniform without decoration or ceremony. Behind her, the flags of Earth and dozens of other worlds hung together as equals. The age of the Coalition was ending, but something new was beginning. Honored delegates, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the hall. We gather today not to celebrate victory or mourn defeat, but to mark graduation day. Vextar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The last 6 months had been the most educational period of his long life. The humans had not conquered the Coalition through brute force. They had dismantled it through demonstration, patience, and relentless teaching. When this conflict began, Sarah continued, the coalition believed that superior numbers and advanced technology guaranteed victory. You have learned that assumption was incorrect. But more importantly, you have learned why it was incorrect. The tactical displays around the hall activated, showing recordings from battles throughout the war. Each engagement had been a lesson in human military doctrine. Each victory had been accompanied by detailed explanations of strategy and execution. The Kithara have mastered adaptive formation fighting, Sarah announced, gesturing toward General Krelon. Your forces at the Battle of Wolf 359 demonstrated tactical flexibility that impressed even our War College instructors. Krelon's forearms moved in a gesture of gratitude. Her species had initially been the most resistant to human teaching methods. Now they were among the most eager students. The Zelani have excelled at long-range coordination, Sarah continued, acknowledging Admiral Zelthara. Your sensor network innovations during the siege of Proxima showed genuine strategic thinking. Around the hall, former enemies nodded with pride as Sarah recognized their progress. This was not the bitter acknowledgement of defeat, but the earned respect between teacher and student. The Morgathi have revolutionized rapid response tactics, Sarah said, turning toward Commander Morgax. Your integration of swarm doctrine with human psychological warfare principles has created entirely new approaches to conflict resolution. But it was when Sarah turned toward Vextar that the hall fell. Completely silent, High Chancellor, she said with formal respect. Your species, the hegemony, have learned perhaps the most difficult lesson of all. You have discovered that true leadership comes not from dominance, but from service to others. Vextar stood slowly, his 6 eyes meeting Sarah's steady gaze. For 1,000 years, his people had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology. The humans had taught them something his species had never imagined, that strength without wisdom was just sophisticated weakness. Admiral Chen, he said, his voice carrying across the hall, 6 months ago I came to you with an ultimatum. I demanded your surrender or threatened your extinction. Today I stand before this assembly to request something different. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The words he was about to speak would have been unthinkable for any hegemony, leader in their entire history. I request that humanity accept leadership of the Galactic Defense Alliance. The hall erupted in discussion. Representatives from hundreds of worlds began talking at once. Some were surprised, others relieved, many excited. The idea of voluntarily choosing their own leaders was revolutionary. Sarah raised her hand for quiet. High Chancellor, I appreciate the offer, but I think you misunderstood our lessons. We did not fight this war to replace your empire with our own. Then what did you fight for? Asked Ambassador Krelon. Sarah smiled, the first genuinely happy expression she had shown during the entire conflict. We fought to give you the freedom to choose your own path forward. The tactical displays changed to show something new. Detailed plans for a voluntary alliance. Unlike the old coalition, which had been based on submission to hegemony authority, this new organization would be built on genuine cooperation between equals. Each world gets one vote, regardless of size or technology level, Sarah explained. Decisions are made by consensus whenever possible. Military action requires approval from 2/3 of member worlds, and most importantly, any species can leave the alliance at any time without penalty. But how do you maintain order? Asked Admiral Zelthara. How do you prevent chaos without strong central authority? Through education, Sarah replied. The same way we ended this war. We will establish the Terran War College to teach military strategy to all species. We will share our technology freely with anyone who wants to learn. We will demonstrate by example that cooperation is more effective than domination. Vextar looked around the hall at the faces of beings who had been his subjects just months ago. Now they were engaged, excited, thinking for themselves about the future they wanted to build. The humans had given them something the coalition never could: hope. There is one condition, Sarah added, and the hall quieted again. The new alliance will not be called the Human Defense Force or the Terran Republic. It will be the Galactic Learning Initiative, because our primary mission will not be conquest or control, but education and mutual improvement. And if hostile forces threaten the alliance? Asked Commander Morgax. Sarah's expression grew serious. Then we will teach them the same lessons we taught the coalition. Not through threats or ultimatums, but through demonstration, We will show them that there is a better way to resolve conflicts than violence. But what if they refuse to learn? Pressed General Creelon. Then, Sarah said quietly, we will defend ourselves and our allies with everything we have learned, and we will continue teaching even during battle, until our enemies become our students. The vote was unanimous. Every species, including the former coalition leadership, agreed to join the Galactic Learning Initiative. They established the new organization's charter that day, with principles based on cooperation, education, and voluntary participation. 1 year later, Vextar stood in the classroom of the Terran War College, teaching a mixed group of students from 12 different species. His lesson was on the dangers of overconfidence in battle. He knew this subject well, having learned it the hard way. Remember, he told his students, superior technology means nothing without superior strategy. The humans taught us this lesson when they defeated a fleet 10 times their size using weapons we had given them. In the back of the classroom, Admiral Sarah Chen observed quietly. She was no longer a military commander but the first director of galactic education. Her job was to ensure that the lessons learned during the Coalition War were never forgotten. After class, Vextar approached her. Admiral, do you ever regret how this all ended? You could have ruled the galaxy. Instead, you chose to teach it. Sarah looked out the window at the busy spaceport beyond. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went, their crews learning from each other, sharing knowledge, building something better than any empire had ever created. High Chancellor, she said with satisfaction, the greatest victory is not conquering your enemies. It's turning them into friends. And the greatest conquest is not taking their worlds, but earning their respect. Vextar nodded, understanding at last why humanity had won. They had fought not to destroy the coalition, but to transform it. They had waged war not for territory or resources, but for the chance to teach the galaxy that there was a better way to live. The final lesson had been the most important one. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to use your power at all. Above the entrance to the War College, a simple motto was carved in the stone. Conflict is inevitable. Victory is earned. Wisdom is shared. The galaxy was finally learning how to teach itself.